Okay, this is a quick response to Silversoul's video on relational reality. Just kind of a response to my video on miracles. I think we're largely in agreement with most of the stuff there, to be honest. You talk about, there's some bits I want to pick up on. You talk a little bit about the resurrection, and you give an account of the origins of the resurrection. You don't use the word hallucination, I don't think, but you kind of say that's possibly a consensual hallucination that took place. I guess my only response to that would be why we would need any kind of an account at all. I mean, for yourself, that's an important story, and I recognise that for many other people, the idea of the resurrection is an important story. And I think we're in agreement that believing in it isn't the key factor. So I just wonder why we would need any kind of naturalistic account of that story for it to have the significance it does for many people, including yourself. I mean, speaking purely personally, for me, if I was to naturalise it as this kind of hallucination that you refer to, and I'm not using hallucination in a pejorative sense, it feels less interesting to me actually as once it's given that a kind of account than if it's just this kind of myth, really. I prefer it as a kind of powerful myth than as a misunderstanding of a situation that really happened. Okay, so that's the first thing. Yeah, then you go on to talk about relational realities, and you give some accounts of experiences you have with people in various New Age communities. And you know, I know a lot of New Age people myself. I work in a place called Totnes in Devon, and it is, you know, the New Age epicenter, or one of the New Age epicenters of the UK. You know, with all the good and bad that brings, lots of sloppiness of thinking, lots of gullibility, but at the same time lots of openness and acceptance, and that's all quite interesting, really, and alternative ways of thinking. Not necessarily ways of arriving at firm knowledge, but definitely ways of thinking, and I really appreciate all that. And it's interesting that you talk in those terms. Relational reality. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find a way to get back to that New Age thing. Yeah, I would agree with everything you say about relational. Yes, of course, your colours emerge as out of the relations we have to objects. All of those things that you refer to. And I thought that the reference you made to the meaning of words was particularly salient. Yeah, words don't have any meaning unless there's a receiver to construct the meaning in the space between the utterer and the receiver of that language. So yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. I suppose I would say, and this is, I guess I'm trying to find a way to hark back to a previous set of videos I made about entangled reality. Initially, I guess I have to say, prompted by something you said, which is great, which is that, you know, at the moment we seem to be hovering around a distinction between objective reality, which you're rightly condemning as the kind of Cartesian objective reality as being invalid, between that and the alternative, which is a kind of radical solipsistic relationships. And I'm just looking at interpersonal related realities. How you know, there is a reality that we all live in, and it is interpersonally. It's not interpersonally constructed, but it's interpersonally emergent, if you like, is how I'm kind of thinking of it, or entangled. You know, we do all have the same sensory organs. We do have the same equipment in our brains for constructing the reality in the way that we can interact with it appropriately, because we have the same kind of bodies and the same kind of needs and so on. So I do think there is I hesitate to use the word, but objective reality. It's not an objective reality which sits outside all human contact or all contact at all, but I do think it's one that's determined by the fact that we all have a lot in common, and so our common reality is the one that we experience, and it's entangled, it's relational, but it's relational not only between one's own individual experience, but it becomes out of the relations that we all have because of our shared natures. Yeah, I suppose I would say that. And just in relation to that New Age thing, I mean, yes, I mean, I know people who claim to be able to see spirits and claim to be able to talk to angels, and yeah, and have contact with entities that I have neither belief in or any truck with, really. They're not part of the relational reality I share with them, which isn't to say that it's not real for them, but real for them does not mean the same, or to me has the same value and applicability as the entangled reality that we do share, that's emergent from our shared natures and our interpersonal relations, as well as our relations with what we think of as inanimate objects and so on. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a way of it's a model of their thinking, and some of our thinking is undoubtedly idiosyncratic, and it's a particular model of a type of idiosyncratic thinking. And again, I'm not being pejorative in using words like idiosyncratic or hallucination. Those are just descriptors in the way I'm using them right now. Okay, just one last thing I just want to say. I've got a note down here, which is you condemn Cartesian objective reality, and I think that's accurate. I don't think it's useful or particularly accurate to think of this kind of naive real world as to just pre-existing our arrival in it. And we just kind of, I mean, it certainly feels that way, and I think we have to take into account the reality of that phenomenological experience. We do feel as if we are cast into this world which pre-exists us. And I know I think you're quite right in identifying it's not quite like that. But I don't think we can take that step and then start pretending that we have great evidence for Platonic forms or for eternal objects. I think we would have to acknowledge that those are as fictitious in many ways, or as can only be really thought of as tools for thinking, or as ways of thinking, or as mechanisms for trying to aid our thinking, rather than objective realities, or as genuine entities out there in the world or something. Yeah, I think we'd have to, if we're going to reject Cartesian objectivism, I don't think we can then just simply replace it with Platonic forms or Whiteheadian eternal objects. Yeah, that's all I've got to say, but thanks very much for that video. It's always a pleasure to see your videos. Great.